Hey Ian, you ready?
You bet I am. What are we talking about tonight? And talk about guns?
If it's not a 30 cal, I'm not in.
Jeez, mate, that's not very inclusive. Have you seen Jono?
Hey Jono, you ready?
Well, God knows where he is, mate. He's probably caught up in the neighbour's wire again. Are you ready to go? Let's do this.
Mate, I'm ready. Let's crank it up.
Righto then. Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of the Hunter's Campfire, where we're going to talk about all things hunting and the great outdoors. And we'll probably throw in a few tips along the way.
You want a tip? Say it once, say it 1,000 times. Goats love rocks.
Or a few things about deer. Mark, what do you reckon about deer?
As a deer hunter, I love hunting pigs.
Well, that's about as useful as I expected it to be. Oh, check it out. Here comes Jono. He's being chased by the neighbour's dog.
Okay guys, let's get this started. Welcome to the Hunter's Campfire. Pull up a chair, get comfortable. It's time for the Hunter's Campfire.
Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, John. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. It's a bit wet and wild out there tonight here in Brisbane.
Yeah, it started here about 5:45, and it's just gone quiet.
No, it's still, you can probably just hear it for me, but it's still raining where we are.
Yeah, it's quarter. So it's been running for 2 3/4 hours, but it's actually just gone quiet just then. And I'm looking at radar. Yes, we still got a bit above us, but it's thinning out. So you're a bit further east of us.
Yeah, but so, northeast of you.
Yeah, you've got a little bit to go, but I think we're about done. I don't know if there's anything behind it. It's certainly
crazy,
been
isn't it?
Wet few days. So there we go. Yep, it's gone quiet here.
No,
the rain has gone.
That's good. Nothing behind it?
No, it doesn't look like it. I'm just looking at the radar. No, there's plenty behind it, but it might not come in. There's plenty of weather out there. That big storm cell that stretches all the way from Ballina to Bundaberg is leaving the east coast and heading out to the ocean. But there's more behind it. But I think that might be it for tonight anyway. This other stuff's a long way away, more than a couple of hundred kilometres away. So
yeah, well, I saw a post today that they're forecasting more storms for Thursday, Friday this week. So we're in for we haven't seen the last of it, put it that way.
Oh, no. I think, all next week looks wet. So, yeah, the reason I knew it started raining 5:45 because at 6 o'clock, little athletics training starts. So we were looking at the sky going, okay, no, it's not going to happen. And it started to rain just beforehand. So, and I'm hoping it's not going to rain on Friday because that's competition night. So, for the boys.
Oh, okay.
So,
if
you're listening or you're watching
Sunday as well, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right. The boys had their first competition, which was this interesting kind of relay. So everything's a team event. So even like individual events, your score gets kind of paired up with other people from your club. So one of my boys looks like he might be going to state. We don't know yet. For shot put.
Shot put. Wow.
Yep. For shot put. They did pretty well in the running, but being relays and being such a small club, it was quite funny because, they're trying to make a 4 for a relay and other clubs have got like A, B, and C relay teams. You just do the best you can with what you got. But it looks like he's done pretty well in the individual events. And my eldest, because his age group is very, very underrepresented, went into these mixed groups, which were both girls and boys of different ages. So, the first leg's a girl who's under 11 and the second leg's a boy who's under 13 and stuff like that. So it's just this crazy relay. But they had a barrel load of fun, so that's the important thing. Yeah,
that's the important part.
Yeah, I should be checking on the results to see if he's going to States. Don't know. So enough of that. If you're listening or you're watching, you know that Ian's not here. but like some voice from the from another dimension, he's still communicating with us.
Still telling us what to do.
That's right. He's still saying, "Oh, do this, do that. Come on, yeah." So that's still happening. But just looking at his this is completely unscripted, guys. But it would appear that we're now doing questions from the audience. So if you're listening, it's time to write into us, email, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, whatever, and ask questions. And so we do have one question. But before we get into that, anything you want to update on before we jump into this?
No, I don't think so. I think let's jump into the question. I think it's all pretty relevant to what we wanted to talk about anyway. So yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah, so because tonight, guys, is a bit of a Q&A. We've got a question list here, and what was it? This is nerdy gun talk night or something like that.
Well, Ian's here. We can talk the tech stuff. Yeah,
that's right. Ian's on here, so we can talk about tech. Okay, so but before we do, the question is, and I'll ask you, Jono, and then and I'll also chuck in a couple of bits too, but I'll ask you the question. Setting up, so this is from Jeff, was it McGowan?
McGowan, I think it is.
I think it was McGowan. And look, and the reason I don't know that is because it's from a message from Ian, who's currently in Malaysia, I think.
Thailand or somewhere.
Or Thailand. Like that, yeah. So Jeff, let's just stick with Jeff. Jeff has asked, setting up pre-season game trail cameras, which is because that's the conversation we had last week. How do you select a location? Jono, so when you're setting up your pre-season game cameras, how do you select your locations?
Well, for me, and it's pretty timely actually, because I was having a conversation today with Adam, who's a guest of the show, and was at Hunt Camp this year, and obviously came along with us to the territory. But we were talking game cams today because he's just bought a number of additional game cams. I think, Mark, you've triggered something with your game cam box. I think everyone's starting to stock up.
I know.
But we were talking today about game cams because we're planning a scouting trip down to Nundle at the end of this year. So towards the end of December, we're planning a trip, just a summer trip for a few days. I'm planning on taking my boy on his first trip. But the purpose of that trip is actually to start putting out some game cams to start, getting those feelers out for the rut, which, as we know, here kicks off in around April. Everyone has differing, weeks, but I think Hunt Camp will be around the 16th generally of April, but before, but after, somewhere around there. I think it's a little bit late, but we'll see how we go. But how do I go about selecting a location? Well, obviously I do my pre-scouting that I did this year before we went out. And then I take what I see on those maps and from the e-scouting that I've done, I go down and I have a look in person. So for instance, I hunted Nundle and I hunted Hanging Rock. I heard sound down in some gullies. I heard a buck croaking. I went down into that gully and I found some sign. So I found his scrapes and I put cameras on the scrape that I saw. So I found a couple scrapes and that's where I put the camera. So I saw sign and it was a good area. I knew there was a buck in the area. I actually saw a buck as well, which was, for me means that there's activity in the area. And so I put a camera on there to see what's happening, to see what the movements are, see what the time of day is. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to build that. I've got a picture in my mind of what I now know what the gully looks like, but I want to find out what those animals are doing when they're doing it and what else is in the area and who else is in the area potential. Because if there are other hunters walking through, then obviously it's public land. They're entitled to be there, but I get an idea of, how many people have been through there. So I've got 2 cams down in that gully at the moment. I actually placed an order today for some more cams, and I'll be putting those out at the end of the year. But yeah, for me, I'm looking at what's the sign that's on the ground, what activity is there, and if it's positive, then I'll put a camera out just to try and get a bit more of a understanding of what's going on and what else is down there. Are the animals there all year round, or are they just there in the rut? Is it? That's the information I'm trying to get. So that's what I'm doing with those cams, and I'll be putting a few more out when we go down the end of the year. I'll have a look at the ones that I've got there. I'll probably pull the memory card if it looks good, what I'm seeing. If there's some sign on there, it's not just blades of grass flapping in the breeze or wallabies or kangaroos, and there's actually some animals on there, I might keep them out and see what else is coming through. But if I'm just seeing Hans or does and the bucks, and there's no buck throughout the year, then I know he's only coming in there during the rut, and maybe I'll spend a bit more time on there. If I don't see anything, well, then what's the point? So that's kind of the logic that I use, and that I'll be using going into hunt camp next year. I know you've been doing some cams. What's you've started your pre-scout work. What logic are you putting into that?
So I suppose I do it a little bit differently, and that's because I have the opportunity to do it differently. And so primarily, no matter where I set a camera up, I want to have some confidence that that's an area that holds game. So it's almost like I'm hunting with a camera. So I'm going to look for something that tells me there's game around. So, well-worn and well-trafficked game trails, scrapes, rubs, and other things like that. If it's near a fence line, is there fur and so on in fence lines, or is there fairly well-worn tracks under a fence or above a fence or something like that? So animal signs or other things that are animal attractors. So is there a watercourse nearby? Is there a particular field plot? So is it between public and private land? And is there cultivation? So first, obviously, the first thing you want to think about is there game here? And so you want to start looking at it as if you were hunting that game and then putting the camera up. Then you can get a little bit, I suppose, experimental. If you're doing this on public land and you're going to have a long time between cameras, then you can't really experiment too much. You got to kind of go, okay, I really want to find really strong signs of game and then have the cameras in that area, because I don't want to, come back in 6 months' time and have nothing.
Agreed.
Because I put my cameras up in the Brisbane Valley and I have access to the properties, it gives me, as I said, like a bit of an opportunity. So currently my cameras are in places that if I only had one chance, I wouldn't put them there. I've actually put them in places that are a bit iffy to do a bit of investigation. So I'm using the cameras in this instance to investigate. So I'm still seeing something that tells me that game is there or about, but it's not really super heavy signs. So I'm there's on a fence line, there's a game trail that comes between a property that I don't have access to, and there's lots of kicked up red dirt there. So something's coming down or going up. And so I put two cameras, one facing the trail and one facing away from the trail, so I can get a bit of a split view. There's another place which is on a crest. It's the saddle. So it's not the crest of the hill, it's the saddle, and that is a well-worn area. So, game will, rather than crest the hill, will travel through that saddle. So I'm actually looking at that saddle again in two different views, and two different types. So one camera is video, one camera is still. Because I will visit them regularly, I will take memory cards up and I will get up there and I'll look at the I'll open up the screen. I'll have a very quick look because they're not that great at viewing. They're slow. If there's something on there that's worth investigating, I'll pull the memory card out and put another one in and investigate that memory card later. If at that time my experiment hasn't worked, I'll just go, okay, I'm going to move them, and I will use that over the next months to kind of concentrate where I've got my cameras. So I'm gonna go wide and try and get an understanding, and then I'm going to move closer and closer and closer and closer. But I can almost guess now that closer and closer will be as the summer goes on. It's going to be closer and closer to water. So the cameras are almost going to follow the animals. So really, to kind of Jeff, to give you a start point, use your camera like you're hunting. You're kind of think of it maybe as you're setting a trap. So you want to set it a trap where where you think there's going to be game, so you've seen game signs. The other thing is, if you're in a situation where you're not exactly sure, try and think about your camera location so you get as wide a picture as possible. Okay, so try and think, so for instance, often when I put a camera along a fence line, rather than looking at the fence, if you will, like at 90 degrees, I'll actually try and find a tree where it can look down the fence line or up the fence line. And so I might not got exactly the crossing point, but hopefully I'll see the crossing point and then I can move towards it. So think about it from a point of view. But again, it reflects what kind of hunting you do. If you're putting cameras up in a state forest and they're going to be there for a month at a time, you really want to be, putting the extra effort into kind of going, okay, I reckon this is a well-worn animal trail, or this is a scrape that's going to be revisited, or this is an area where they come to wallow and things like that.
Yeah, I think that there's a big difference between public and private land.
Yes.
I mean, we know public land gets a lot more pressure. Animals are a lot more pressured. You've got to be more selective about where you're putting those cameras. I know the one camera that I've got out, I've got both of my cameras. I've got two cameras out at the moment, of both in Hanging Rock. One is overlooking a crossing point. There was actually, it's on a corner where you come down an old forestry trail, and when you come down, there's a creek, and then there's some tracks coming off that. So it's almost like an intersection.
Yep.
And there was so much traffic through there. You could see it because we had some rain. There'd been some storms, and you could see the tracks coming through that crossing where the animals were using that as a point. So I put a camera on there. That's more of a speculation, I think, for me. Just I knew there was animal sign. I knew animals were using that as a crossing, but what animals are using it? What are they bucks? Are they the does? How many animals? So I've got that one out as more of a speculation, but I put it in a place where I knew animals were crossing. And the other one is focused on what I could see was a very active scrape, a big scrape, and I knew there was a buck in there because I heard him. And I saw a buck coming in to come to that scrape. He was coming around the back. He was one of those more, satellite bucks coming in.
Yep.
So that's where that camera is. Hopefully at the end of December, when we head down for a few days, we'll be able to pull those cameras and they're still there and someone hasn't stolen them, because that's the other risk you've got on public land. That
is my look, and they get stolen on private land too. That's one of my key considerations with cameras and memory cards. Will I be upset if it's not there when I come back, or too upset? So I try and buy the cheapest camera that I can buy, and I try and buy the cheapest memory card. And some of those Amazon cameras actually come with a pretty ordinary memory card.
Yeah,
and that's the one I use. That's it.
Yeah.
And I try and, because I've lost one camera last year through rain. It was literally got washed away. Another one did too, and I managed to find that one, but one is gone. There is some very nice, high, really well made game cameras out there. My advice is buy cheap.
Yeah, agreed. The ones I bought today, I think the two that I've got out at the moment in Hanging Rock are Temu ones, and the two that I bought today were from eBay, I think, which came, two in a pack with memory cards. You just got to add your batteries and away you go.
Yeah. If
they get stolen, if they get rained out, then, well, that's just, it's the risk you take, but at the end of the day, you can't get upset about it. If I'd spend $250, $300 on a camera, I'd be pretty upset about it. But especially on public land, unfortunately, there are a few people out there who help themselves to these cameras. You've just got to accept it's part of the risk you take of putting a camera out, especially on public land.
Yeah. And so if you have, as we seem to now have a new segment of our podcast, if you have questions and you'd like us to have a punt at answering, let us know. I think we'll try and do this every time.
Yeah, why not?
I like it.
I think we should.
Thanks, Jeff, for reaching out. Good on you, Muddy. Okay, so the Q&A tonight is a little bit different. John and I are talking about this. We're going to have we've got a fairly comprehensive list of questions here, but I suppose the singular question is, what is your insert here, favorite, memorable, or sentimental piece of equipment? Okay. So, and the reason for that is it doesn't have to be the best. It's the one that kind of comes to mind when you think about these things. So, Jono, what is your favorite, memorable, and I'm not going to repeat that every time, sentimental rifle?
Rifle. So for me, it's going to be a Crico 308 that I bought. It's the first ever rifle that I bought. I was 19 years old in South Africa, student, didn't have much money. There was a gun shop that was 20, 25 minutes drive south of where I lived. And I started hunting very late in life. As we've covered on this podcast, I wasn't brought up in a family of hunters. I was introduced to hunting in my late teens. I went on my first hunt when I was 18, 19. I bought my first rifle, which was a second-hand Crico 308, which I still own to this day. It's actually in the possession of my very good mate Rory, who actually was the one who introduced me to hunting. I bought it secondhand. It cost me at the time an exorbitant 2,800 rand, which, if we use today's exchange rate, is about $280.
It's about $280.
Yeah, it's about 10 to 1 thereabouts, which at the time, as a 19-year-old student, was a lot of money. But it was a 30 cal. That's all I wanted. I couldn't own a 3006 because my best mate owned a 3006, and I wanted a rifle a caliber that I could take most African game, non-dangerous game species with. Someone had defaced the rifle, so they'd actually engraved their initials with a heart. So I, Heart, and his girlfriend or partners at the time into the stock, and I actually had that sort of cut out and a piece of wood put in to replace it. It wasn't the same timber, so it looked different. But being the first rifle that I ever owned, the first rifle that I took my first ever animal with, and the fact that 26 years later? No, is it 26? Whatever. That would have been 1999. I bought that rifle. So what's that? 25 years. I still own that rifle. And the last time I went to South Africa in 2018, I shot an eland and a gemsbuck with that rifle. And hopefully next year I'm going back to South Africa and I plan to shoot some more animals with that rifle. So for me, first rifle I ever owned, still own it to this day. And for me, it just holds a huge part of my hunting memories and sentiment. If I could bring it over here, I would, but it's too difficult. So I'll just leave it in Africa. Whenever I go back, I'll shoot with it. So that's mine. How about yourself, Mark?
This one's tricky because it's hard to lay my finger on one particular one. So my 3006, my Tika 3006, that was the first left-hand. No, it wasn't. It was the first left-hand 30 cal I ever bought. I bought that in 2008. And I spent a truckload of money on that rifle that I will never get back. So, for instance, I've got a custom stock on it, and that, I don't mean by that, I don't mean an aftermarket stock. I actually went to a stock builder and got a stock made. And my wife and I at the time, who wasn't, actually I think we were just married, but we didn't have kids, so I could, buy stocks like that. I could do that kind of stuff. It took us 2 hours to pick the wood. The little water spray bottle and spraying it and looking at the pattern in it. It's like got it made to measure like a suit. So and that got there, and then there's been lots of modifications and customization to that rifle ever since. And Ian used it to take a buffalo with it.
He did?
Yeah.
And even he said he couldn't believe how smooth and it was. It's
just ridiculous how good that rifle is. So that's probably, that's up there. But from a down memory lane, I used to have an M1 carbine pre-1996, I always wanted an M14, but I couldn't afford them because they were quite expensive. And I also wanted, for those who remember the original version of the A-Team, I wanted a Ruger Mini 14, which again I couldn't afford. But I did buy myself an M1 carbine, which is a tiny little semi-auto US Army issue thing. World War II, Korea, I think didn't go past Korea. Shot 30 cal pistol rounds.
Mm.
Little tiny thing. Like, you know.
Did you say it was semi-auto?
Yeah. There was actually a full auto version of them, I believe, but mine wasn't. So it was a semi-automatic, you know, had the cocking lever on it, 10-shot mag, an M1. There's a M1A1, which is a different rifle, but it's the M1 carbine. So if you're listening, you want to know what an M1 carbine is, have a look. It's a tiny little thing. It was actually, I believe, the concept was it was a rifle to replace an officer's pistol. So it was really a close quarter rifle, military rifle, but it shot like this little 30 cal. They're about if you ran into a mob of pigs and you let them up with it, you just have to whack a couple of them at 100 yards. They didn't have a great deal of penetration, but they weren't bad. So that was that, because that was a semi-auto, and that was last semi-auto I ever owned. But being fickle, I tell you something, this Chapuis has got a bit of a
Really?
Yeah. It's, you know, it's a wholly impractical, belts the hell out of you, 2-shot, you know, but wow, it's something to hunt with. It certainly changes your perspective hunting with that rifle. It hits like a sledgehammer, but it hasn't got much legs. Its accuracy is okay, and it boots the hell out of you. But it's certainly, it's, you know,
it's ground,
it's like there is no version of that rifle that isn't built for hunting. You know, there is no, like, you know, I can use this for anything. No, this is meant to hunt big animals. That's all it's meant for. That's all it does. It does it really well. But there's lots of limitations to it. But actually that's quite interesting. So, you know, you've got 2 shots, and then you got to crank the barrel out, crank it open, and put 2 in. It starts to get pretty loose after 100 yards, and those big slugs tend to fall out of the sky. So,
they fall out of the barrel as well when you're running.
That's right. They fall out of the sky. That's right. And if you watch it, you can drop them and all sorts of things like that. So yeah. So I'm a bit it's hard for me to name my favourite in that. So moving from rifle, caliber for you. What's your caliber? What's your go-to caliber?
Oh, I've got my go-to. Is it my favourite? I've got a big soft spot for the 308. I've owned 3, and I still currently own 2. But is it my most sentimental or memorable caliber? No. For me, so when I was in the UK, and the first rifle I bought, when I got my centerfire rifle license, because over there, similar to here, you get your rifle license and your shotgun license. Shotgun, very loose. It's very easy to get a shotgun license. There's no specific requirements about ammo storage or anything like that. You can have, you know, a stack of shotgun shells as your door, you know, your door opener or whatever you want. Whereas rifles, very, very different. You've got limitations on the amount of ammunition you can own, the amount of ammunition you can purchase in a single transaction. So you can, for instance, go to the gun shop, and your license will stipulate that you can buy 40 rounds at a time, and you're not allowed to have more than 100 rounds in your possession. It's very, very strict when it comes to ammunition. That's after, you know, some massacres, and that's similar to Australia. But one of the calibers that I bought and was the 7x57 or the 7mm Mauser. And the reason why I bought that was because of the stories that I had read about, is it Karamojo Bell, I think it is, where he shot, you know, hundreds of elephants with this caliber. And when you look at
Rigby,
275 Rigby, 7mm Mauser, 7x57, it's all the same caliber. And I remember reading the stories, and, you know, about shooting elephant, and I knew people who use 7x57s in South Africa to shoot all of the species. And for me, that is, for me, a very sentimental cartridge, because it was the first Calibre I bought in the UK, and I loved it. And reading their stories and reading the book, it was just, it brought back so much memory and history, and the fact that the cartridge has been reinvented so many times. As you said, you got 260 Rigby, the 275, 7mm Mauser, 7x57. It's the same caliber, just sort of reinvigorated. And I love that caliber. The only reason why I sold that rifle and bought a 308 was because of ammunition. It was hard to get ammunition for it, and at the time I didn't reload, and that was the only reason why. And to this day, I still regret selling that caliber of rifle. It was an old CZ that I bought in 7x57. Loved it, but I just struggled to get hold of ammunition and good grouping ammunition. But for me, after reading Karamoja Bell's book, that is a sentimental caliber for me. And one day I will purchase another 7x57. I have the book somewhere over here.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
He reckons, for those who haven't read it, he used to head shoot elephants.
Yeah.
And he had this, basically he said, like, inside their head is the brain, and it's kind of like it was like a bell donger inside, and he kind of knew where to, and he had all the various different angles that he could make sure that he always did brain shots. It was all about, and
if you read the book, I believe he shot 1,000 elephants with that caliber because he shot them in the head and he shot them properly. But for me, that's and one day I'll own another one, another 7x57, but I've got to find the right rifle. The 260 Rigby could be the one if I could ever afford one, potentially. I might have to have a chat to Tom Morgan about that one, but
lean on Tom. For me, I'm going to go a bit different. 12 gauge is my favorite caliber.
Okay.
I love shotguns. I especially like hunting with shotguns. I don't mind shooting clays, but I really, really like hunting with shotguns. And I just have always done it. I've always done it, and I continue to do it. I just love hunting game with shotguns, and both feathered and furred. So for me, ultimately, my favourite caliber is 12 gauge. I've got a 12 gauge. I've got a 28 gauge. I don't have a 20 gauge, but I have a 28, a 12. I've actually got a few 12 gauge shotguns. But yeah, for me, ultimately, my favorite caliber is 12 gauge. So in 7x57, do you have a favorite projectile, or size projectile that you like in that?
So I'm going to change it up here.
Okay.
I'm not going to say my favorite projectile or bullet is 7x57, but I'm going to go to 308 here. And so when I was in the UK, I sold my 7x57 and I bought a Tika Super Varmint 308, which had a moderator on the end of it. Weighed a ton, but oh my god, it was an accurate rifle.
They are.
But over there we weren't doing 20k walks and up and down big hills and steep gullies chasing reds. We were most of the time doing high seat hunting, or stalking as they call it. So you could get away with a heavy varmint rifle, and with a moderator. In most places, you have to use a moderator on a lot of those properties. But my mate Austin put me onto this projectile, which was a Hornady TAP. So the TAP is actually tactical and police. And what they were designed for maximum penetration, but for the bullet to cause as much damage as possible and dissipate as much energy as possible, so that it didn't come out of the person that they were shooting. It was designed for tactical and police, so that you limited that sort of secondary damage. So if you were going to take a shot at someone who was holding a hostage, that you weren't going to have that other person or the hostage injured. But
through and throughs,
well, no, it was designed to basically, you didn't want the through and throughs. You wanted the bullet to dissipate, use as much energy as possible, and cause maximum damage.
Did the bullet disintegrate inside?
it didn't disintegrate, but it just really expanded and used as much of its energy as possible.
Because that's like that. It's not like the varmint grenades, and
no, it doesn't. They didn't explode, but they're designed for maximum expansion and energy dissipation. Okay. But he put me onto these, and they were 168 grain. And out of my Tika 308 Super Varmint, they were the most accurate round I've ever shot. And with that moderator on it, it didn't recoil, it didn't hurt. You weren't flinching. The sound was just this crack of a sound. It wasn't this big loud boom. And I knew wherever I put those crosshairs, that round was going out to 200 meters. It was just deadly accurate. And that for me, that round is ingrained, pardon the pun, on my head, in my brain, because it was just so accurate, so deadly. I shot everything with that thing. I shot, Seeker, I shot Roe, I shot Muntjac, I shot, what else? Foxes, you name it. And it was just so accurate. And I love that round. I love that rifle. I was very sad the day that I sold that rifle to move to Australia. I actually wanted to bring it over with me, and that's how we met, because I put a post up on Hunting Australia forum saying, how hard is it to bring rifles into Australia, and what scope should I have? And that's when you answered. And that's how we became friends. But yeah, for me, that 168 grain Hornady tap will forever be this round that I can never forget it.
There you go.
What about you?
I don't have a particular projectile, but I do have in rifle. I have a particular weight, and I love 150 grains. I shoot 150 grain out of every rifle I have. That's not true. Every 30 cal I have. So actually, I should clarify that. Technically, my 9.3 is a 30 cal. So out of my 308, let's get right down. Out of my 308 and out of my 3006 and out of my 3030s, when I had 3030s, I like 150 grain. I just think it's the best balance between knockdown power and ballistics. So it'll fly as far as you want it to fly, and it will stay stable through the air and remain accurate. But when it hits, it does the job. That's in a rifle. But again, my favorite is slugs out of a 12 gauge. That just makes my day shooting them things.
Do you know what would be good? A buffalo with a 12 gauge.
There's a guy who used to write for SSAA and a little bit, and he may still do. I haven't read any stuff for a while. They used to have a little like a coach gun, and they'd be on motorbikes, and basically they'd ride up and put them against their head and put slugs in them.
There's a challenge for you, Mark, on the next
slugs, there's certainly a lot of knockdown power in a slug. Penetration it doesn't really get into the penetration space so much as the brutalization type thing. It's just a great big chunk of lead moving at a relatively slow pace, to 1,200 feet per second. They're not fast. No. But they're, and so I've had a lot to do with diverse types of slugs. You get, the smooth slug, which looks like I suppose, just like a sinker cut in half, and some of them have a little indent in the top to give it a little bit of a hollow point effect. But then you get into the really design slugs that actually look like a little bit like an air rifle pellet and all sorts of things. And then you get rifled slugs. There's always the question is, do rifle slugs shoot more accurately out of a smooth bore or not? It's hard to tell. I used to have a rifled slug barrel on one of my shotguns. So it was a slug barrel, and they have a very slow twist in them. And that was actually, you could get a reasonable accuracy out of that thing. And I think that was because in the States, it was one of those, because they have different seasons. It was like a shotgun season, but it was kind of a shotgun that was getting close to being rifle type of thing, like the Ruger Bushmaster and those things. So slugs, pigs, goats, deer, slug. down they go.
Nice.
Scopes.
For me, Swarovski. It's got a soft spot in my heart. I've owned one in my life. I've used two. I've used the one that I owned and the one that I borrowed on our first heritage trip, which was actually yours, on my 9.3. But yeah, for me, I'm not going to say it's a particular, although my 8x56 that I had when I lived in the UK was simply amazing. I think for me, it's the quality of the optic. I went from I think it was a Leopold, and my first exposure to Swarovski was through the Binos, where I had a pair of Bushnell Binos, was sat in a high seat. Mate was nudging me saying, "There's the deer, shoot it." And through my Bushnells, I couldn't see them. And he handed me his Swarovski Binos, and suddenly there was 20 deer in front of me in the field when I looked through them right on lost light. So I went out the next day and bought a pair of Swarovski Binos, which I still own and still use to these days.
SLs, was it?
I've got the ELs.
ELs, sorry, yeah, the ELs.
ELs, yep. Right. So I've got the Swarovski ELs. They are 20 years old now, probably. 20 years old, and still amazing. You know, the quality. Yes, they're not range finding, whatever, but the quality of the optic is just second to none. But a little while later, I was sat in a high seat and I had my Swarovski Binos and I could see the deer coming out at last light. And then I was looking through my Leopold scope and I couldn't see the deer. And so I went out and bought a Swarovski scope. And because most of the hunting I was doing or stalking I was doing was high seat, I went for a really large fixed magnification, 8 power with a 56 front objective.
57, wow.
8x56, lots of light gathering. And then when I looked through my Swarovski Binos and then I looked through my scope, I could see the same thing. So for me, Swarovski all the way. I wish I could afford another one, but I can't, unfortunately. Although, you know, the optics these days, especially still European optics, you know, your Steiners, etc., that we're using, they're up there. Luckily, we don't need the light gathering. I think that, you know, the Swarovskis and the Zeisses, that you really need those in Europe when you're hunting, really doing that last light stand hunting. But for me, Swarovski, it's got to be.
Yeah, I'm of the same. I got the opportunity to buy a Z6, 1-6, which is the one you used it, and I that went across 4 or 5 rifles, that scope. And as you said, the European optics, especially at that level, but all the European optics are a funny thing because, and I've said it before, you don't believe they're worth it until you use them, and then you kind of go, okay, now I get it.
Yeah,
and that's what it is. You kind of go, oh man, how different can it be? Oh, okay, that different.
That's
Yes. Okay, yeah. Now I know what you mean. That's it. That was the same. Yeah, that I do have. I mean, and that's the thing. You kind of get spoilt when you get Swarovski. I do have one more Swaro scope. I've got a Swaro spotting scope.
Oh, of course.
Which is just, again, ridiculous. You go to the range, you know, and it's just like, you know, you can see the ants. It's fantastic. And people kind of go, why you got that spotting? You know, mate, oh, mate, it's a pretty flash spotting scope for the range. I said, well, why not?
I've got it. I'm going to use it.
Yeah, I got it. I got it. I love it. And it's just a straight one, you know, single eyepiece. It's a fantastic scope. It's very hard to really communicate how good they are until you use them. And that leans into binoculars.
Yeah. For me,
I've
answered that one.
You've got the Swaro.
Yeah,
for
that's me.
The first high quality European glass binoculars I had were Zeiss. No, my mistake. Leicas.
Yep.
And I got a pair of Zeiss afterwards. Leica, I still have them. And yeah, again, that was it. I had the opportunity to buy a pair of binoculars that I probably wouldn't have been able to afford otherwise. I bought them, and they're just fantastic. 8x42s, they're just wonderful. Those things. You know, and one of the problems is that, you know, I've got them. They're sitting in the shed because I'm running the Steiner LRFs, which themselves are fantastic glass with the rangefinder. So the hand me downs are Leicas sitting in the
And
shed.
downs like.
That's right.
Well, that's why I haven't moved on to LRS, because I don't want to give up my Swaros, and I can't.
That's
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. So they're sitting there like what do you do with them? And then my boy's going, oh, they're nice binoculars, and I said, yeah, mate, you're not going to start on Leicas.
No, you've got to go through the pain of
That's where you
cheaper
gotta at
Tascos or
least
something like that.
get something before you start that. Okay, and so Binos, Bino rigs, that's easy for me. The marsupial gear Bino rig. That's it. Easy peasy. Not sentimental, not memorable. Just the best thing I own in that space. Some things are just simply the best, and that's the best one for me.
Mm-hmm. So I'm yet to own marsupial, but I am in the process, it's definitely coming for me to move to marsupial. I've used the Hunter's Element rig, and then which was okay, but just didn't have enough pockets and space for me. So for a little while now, I've been using the Bush Edge one, which has actually been great. They fit my ELs really well. They've got the extra pockets. They've got the molly on them where I can attach a few extra bags and patches. It's great. They've been good. But I think after seeing the marsupials in the territory, I think I might need to upgrade and join the marsupial club. So
yeah, thinking about going right back to that original question about Jeff about trail camps, we should have left some trail camps in the territory.
We didn't. I took one with me, and
we should have left some in the territory.
Yeah. Well, I think at that stage we weren't planning on coming back or going back next year. We're every 2 years, but we probably should have. Yeah.
Very
I think
true.
We'll do that next year.
We should have left some in the trip,
especially where Tyson was. Yeah,
along that water course. Yeah. Anyway,
right. Next trip.
Yeah. That's it. Sure. So, hunting clothing, camo or otherwise, hunting clothing.
So for me, I'm a latecomer to camo. I didn't wear camo for most of my hunting career. I started off in good old Army surplus is where I started. And for me, my favorite and most memorable piece of equipment would have been a jacket that I bought from the local Army surplus store. I was 18 years old, never been hunting before, was going on my first hunt with a mate, and it was up in the mountains. I needed something warm, and I went to the Army surplus and tried on all the different jackets, and I ended up with this big, thick, heavy jacket that had a German flag on one side, and it wasn't a leather jacket or anything like that, but I think it had a British flag on the other side. I think it was. It probably cost me $8, I probably would say, in exchange. But it was this big, thick, heavy jacket. And for me, I'll never forget the day that I bought that. 18 years old in the Army surplus store, buying my first ever hunting jacket. And that thing went with me on many, many hunts, kept me warm on many, many hunts. I wish I knew what happened to it because I don't know. But for me, that's the most memorable and sentimental piece of equipment or clothing that I ever owned. And that was just because it was the first for me. So
yeah, in this space, I have no attachment or memorabilia or anything. Kiryu, that's it. I've just gone through this progression over many years from Army surplus to Army surplus, and then to that stuff that they sell in Army surplus, which is knockoff Army surplus. So it's the multicams into dedicated into some kind of combination. And if you look at some of my stuff from the 2000s, I'm often wearing like a combination. So I might be wearing a bit of Ozcam and a bit of Hunter's Element and stuff like that, or Ridgeline and Hunter's Element, and I just kept going and kept on going. And then I finally bit the bullet and bought my first item of Kiryu, and then I just started devolving everything else.
That's it. Hold your shirt up there, Mark. What's
that's it. That's it. I wear this stuff every day. I mean, I just started devolving myself, out of it. So much so I was watching this TV show on Amazon called Lioness, which is one of Taylor Sheridan's action, and the CIA operative is wearing a Kuyu shirt in that, and I own that shirt. I actually wore that shirt, same style shirt in the territory. It's actually a shirt, college button-up shirt. As I was looking at it, I said, I got that shirt. So yeah, there's nothing here about sentimentality. It's about I just found the best, and I'm just kicking everything else out. Everything else is going. That's all there is to it. There's no favorites or anything here. I just realised it's so much better than everything else. So that's for me. Boots.
Boots. I can't say I have a favorite pair of boots, but for me, from a sentimental point of view, again, I'm going back to my early hunting days in South Africa. I remember going to one of the local sort of department stores, and they had a pair of high-tech boots.
Oh yeah,
good old high-tech leather boots. I'd never owned a pair of leather boots before, and they were a pair of high-tech hunting boots. And again, I would have been 18 or 19 years old, probably 18 years old. I remember my mother bought them for me, and because I couldn't afford to buy them, and I was going on my first hunt, and I had these high-tech boots for I started hunting in 98 was my first hunt, and I left South Africa to go to the UK in 2002. So they would have been 4 years old then when I left, but I still had them for 4 or 5 years after that. And every time I'd go back to South Africa, every year I'd hunt with them again. So for me, they just, when you put on a pair of boots and they just fit like a glove, and they just perfectly molded to your feet. You're never going to get blisters. I wore those. Yeah, I did hundreds and hundreds of Ks in those boots. And for me, I'll never forget those boots. Just because they were the first ever pair that I owned. I'm not sentimental when it comes to footwear generally, but for me, that pair of boots I'll never forget those.
Yeah, I've got something similar. So the first pair, it's a pair of boots that I had for over 11 years. It was La Sportiva. I tried to keep them alive a couple of times. The last time, though, when they reattached the sole, they lost any kind of waterproofing. So that was the end of them, unfortunately. And I think I wore them for like another year just as a dry weather only boot. So the reason was over 20 years ago now, two friends were going to do the hike on Hinchinbrook Island, the Hinchinbrook hiking track, where you get dropped off and you walk the island and you get picked up at the other end. And it's only like 20 people at any one time. It's one of the famous walks. And I bought a pair of La Sportivas from Mountain Designs in the Brisbane city when they were still in the city. And they were the first boots you could wear, just put them on your feet and walk out the door. I'd never owned full leather, full-on hiking boots that were like that before. Everything, had to be rubbed, broken in and rubbed in and, worn in and all that kind of stuff. Those things were just like slippers. You just put them on. And literally, I got them home. A few days later, week or so later, we're on. I had my backpack and all that stuff. We caught a train up to North Queensland. Wore them on the train. Wore them off the train. Got on the boat. Wore them on the boat. Walked days in them. Turned around and came back. The first pair of boots that I realised that, you get to a level of quality of footwear and boots that you don't have to break in. They're right to go. And I mean, in more after that, things like the Zamblins and the lowers, they're the same thing. You don't have to break them in. You just start wearing them straight away. That was the first pair of boots I ever owned that didn't need kind of work. They were just ready to go. That's why I always I come back to those. And on that one was the pack. I used to hunt and hike and travel. It's been to a number of countries with an older Macpac Ascent, which was actually a mountaineer's backpack, which lent itself in my early days to hunting because it was a thin backpack.
Mm.
It was thinner and longer rather than wider, and it was actually designed to carry things on the outside of the pack like ice axes and stuff like that. So it translated really well to a hunting pack. But the only downside of that pack was that it wasn't particularly good about carrying dead flesh in it. It wasn't designed to do that. So it had this really good waterproof lining in it that protected the gear, but the idea was you weren't supposed to put the wet stuff in it. So that was the only thing. It didn't translate well to a meat pack. So for me, a pack-wise was that Mac Pack Ascent. So pack for you?
So for me, it's going to be your favorite brand, Kuyu. I've got that Kuyu pack that I bought. Actually, it was after, I think, the trip we did to Severn, I think it was. And
that's that Venture 2300.
The Venture 2300, correct. For me, I love that pack. I put it on and it's like putting on this blanket that just goes around me and makes me all feel warm and cozy. And I've walked, well, again, hundreds of Ks with that thing on my back, up and down Brisbane Valley, up and down, Nundle, up and down Pilliga. I carried it in the Territory on the first trip we did. For me, I put that pack on, and it's so comfortable. Again, like with you, I don't find it a good meat hauling pack. It's not designed, doesn't have a frame or anything in it, or a shelf for carrying meat. Which is why I upgraded to the Mystery Ranch, which I didn't really like at first. It just took time for me to get used to how it fitted my body, having the rigid frame. And I've definitely come around to it. I've packed out goat with it. I've packed out deer with it now. But yeah, for me, that Kuyu Venture 2300 is just, it's a beauty, that thing.
Yeah, they are. They're a very good internal frame pack. They are limited in their size, but they're not. I mean, that's you know that when you buy them. And I have hauled meat on them, both carried it and had it in the pack as well, and it was able to do it. But they're not really designed for that.
They're not
really
meat haulers.
They're a fantastic day pack, or you could even. I mean, or you could even overnight them if you went real lightweight. They're certainly a. And you point to the Mystery Ranch and getting that right. And I'm using the Tatonka, the Modulus, and after the Territory, I've been playing around with that to get it right, because I'm not sure exactly why, but in those last 2 days, it felt like it was just a little bit heavier on one side than the other. It just felt, and because it's got a rigid frame, it's a frame pack. That's the whole idea of it. So I've been playing around balancing that up and cutting down straps, because a lot of the straps are really, really long and they dangle everywhere and stuff like that. But that's it. I mean, packs are a funny thing like that. I agree with you that the thing about that Kuyu pack is you just basically just put it on. And off you went. You just did some adjustments and away you went. It was that kind of level of quality. So next one is knives or knife. Over to you.
So I don't have this attachment to knives that you do, Mark. I think I don't know how you're going to be able to find a favorite out of all the ones that you've got. But for me, sentimental wise, I have a pair of custom knives that I got. Well, I say I got made. That, and you probably know the superstition around this, but you should never give someone a knife for free. It's supposed to be bad luck.
Yeah, you've got to give something for it.
You've got to give something for it.
Is it free, or you should never give metal for metal? I don't know if it's.
I don't know, but for me,
I don't know if it's free, or you should never give someone, because you give them a penny back.
Correct. Yeah, that's what it is. So what we did is we gifted each other a pair of custom knives, and so I paid for his, he paid for mine. That way, it was we weren't gifting each other, or we paid for something ourselves. But anyway, I got a small little folding knife, custom folding knife, and then I got a fixed blade, both of which are made out of fallow deer handle that we actually we picked up from a cast fallow deer. And now fallow deer are not native to South Africa. We were on a hunt in South Africa together. We both shot trophy fallow bucks together, and basically we found a cast fallow deer antler on that trip, and then we basically bought each other these knives. So for me, that's got huge sentimental meaning, simply because I know the story behind it, and the person who bought me that knife and I bought a knife for, they introduced me to hunting, and they're my lifelong hunting partners and mentors. That's the most sentimental set of knives that I have. Otherwise, for me, a knife is a tool. I don't have attachment to any others, but those two for me are very special.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. So, I've, like a lot of things, this has been a very long process, and when I was thinking about this question, I've had 4 separate custom knives made, and unfortunately, I haven't really liked any of them. So where I'm at the moment is, for a purely practical hunting purpose, I can't find anything better than Benchmade. At a purely hunting only so if it's a hunting knife, to me, Benchmade are the top of the tree. And that is top of the tree compared to the 4 custom-made knives by very, very competent and well-known knife makers who I just haven't liked as much as the Benchmade. But if it comes down to one knife, it's this particular one here, which is the Falcon Idun. Now, if you're going to look at this, guys, it's FALLKNIVEN, Falcon Idun, IDUN, or sometimes the number is the NL5L. They're $630 nowadays. I bought this for about $250 years ago. I've never owned a knife that's better than this. The only reason I don't use it for hunting is that stack leather. That's it. But this is truly a ridiculously good knife. It's ridiculous. Yeah, it doesn't make sense how good it is. But yeah, it's the leather sheath doesn't translate well to hunting, and the stack leather handle doesn't translate well to hunting. So from a hunting point of view, that's why I like one of the reasons why I like the Benchmades, with the the rubberized handle and the Kydex sheath and the matte finish on them. But I also like the fact that the thinness of the blades, their ability to take and hold an edge, and their shape and all that stuff as well. So, and that Benchmade got a workout in the territory, and then it worked. It did its job. It was one of the few knives that actually were able to do the job. So it's 2 things. That sentiment, the fondness is this Idun. From a practical point of view, I'd go the Benchmade every time, and I got a stack of them.
How many are you up to now?
Benchmates. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. 6.
Pretty good.
And 2 of them, they're fantastic, but I don't know what I'm going to use them for. So yeah, my everyday carry is a Benchmade, a little tiny Benchmade. I've got a hunting version of that, which is the blaze orange handle, and then I've got the one I carry all the time, and then there's the meat crafter, which is that bigger one, which is a great butchering knife, and then there's 2 specialty ones, which are just absolutely fantastic, but I'm not sure what use I'm going to use them for, but they're fantastic. So yes, knives, bipods, tripods, or sticks.
So I'm a big fan of having shooting sticks or bipod or something with me. I I don't know. I've shot a lot of animals off a bipod, and I think growing up in Africa, you typically carry sticks with you, a set of shooting sticks. Normally, it's a piece of, like broomsticks or something like that that have been tied within a tube. That's the most common one that I grew up with. When I went to the UK, it was quite often some garden sticks with the old rubber band that you put around the nuts of a sheep to castrate them. That was the common one, where you would have 2 or 3 of the garden poles with the rubber band for the sheep. But for me, in the most recently, I've come across and am using the Spartan gear. For me, that's been a game changer. I had a set of the trigger sticks, the Primos trigger sticks, which I actually really, really loved. I love the ability to go up and down with the pulling of a trigger. However, on the top of that, I had one of the Spartan. I think it was, what was it? The Spartan Davros. I had the Davros head on that. But yeah, for me, I've really come around. I've actually got a set of Spartan bipod or tripod now. I've got a Spartan tripod which you can unscrew, carbon fiber, really, really light. I've got the binocular mount for them as well. So I like to use my binos for glassing. So I'll have the sticks, put the binos on top, and then I glass with them. But I've always got the Spartan carbon fiber bipod, which I sit on the bottom of my Bino rig. As I said earlier, I used to shoot a lot of animals with a bipod, not so much anymore. I probably shoot more off either the shooting sticks or a lot offhand, actually. I find I'm shooting a lot more offhand these days, which I used to try and avoid. But now, just instinctively, I'll go offhand. I find I often drop the sticks. For instance, I shot in the Brisbane Valley a little while ago. We came up on a herd of red hinds, and I had the camera in one hand. I dropped the camera and I dropped the sticks, and I ended up shooting off a fence post. So I find I'm a lot more instinctive shooting these days than relying on those shooting aids. But I typically do carry them with me just in case. So
I haven't found one system yet that I like, actually. It's really weird. And I've tried a lot. I did like the Spartan...
The Springboks, wasn't it?
Springboks, I think they're called.
Yeah,
they were
the
a longer one, but they were actually really weird. They were really good on uneven terrain, but on steady terrain, they were horrible. They were, it just didn't translate. But on uneven terrain, they were fantastic. And I did shoot a red off bipod this year, but that only was because the situation lent itself to a bipod shot perfectly. I can't seem to get them right. I've owned various brands, I've carried them, but generally I always find out I end up leaving them back at home, or they're still on my pack when I'm shooting and stuff like that. So I don't have one for bipod because for some reason I just don't seem to I'm just not bipod wide or tripod wide, just not that way to shoot. And when I do have to do it, like in the UK, when you have to do it, I find it incredibly annoying. It's really all bloody awkward.
Yeah, I guess that's probably where I got my I guess love of the bipod, and I shot a lot of animals off the bipod in the UK. You were either in the high seat, or if you came out of the high seat, you would be sitting on the edge of the field, and you would have, I think, because of the nature of the type of hunting that you were doing, we're often sitting on the edge of agriculture. The animals are often feeding, they're not spooked, you're not walking up on them, you've got time to get up and get set and get ready and get steady on a shot. Whereas here, I think, especially public land, the animals are pressured, you're often walking on top of them. I think if you did a lot of private land hunting where you were, sitting on the edge of a paddock and things like that, and you've had a lot more time on your hands, the animals are a lot more relaxed, I think you'd probably shoot more for bipod. But just the nature of the shooting that we do these days, I think it just lends itself to those opportunistic shots, and you take it as soon as you can get it.
Okay, just to kind of wrap up the shooting side of things, or the hunting side of things, a hunt. Tell us about a memorable hunt.
Oh, for me, There's been so many, but for me, for my own personal hunt that I've done, so for those who don't know what a McNab is, so that's where you have to, and it originated in Scotland, where you have to shoot a deer or an antelope, you have to catch a fish, and you have to shoot a winged bird, obviously a winged, a feathered bird, all between the hours of sunrise and sunset. So the famous one in Scotland, named after a poacher, is you have to shoot a red stag, you have to catch a salmon on the flower, and you have to shoot a brace of which one is it? What do they have to shoot?
Not sure.
Isn't it grouse? I think it's supposed to be grouse in Scotland. I did one in South Africa. Yeah, in Scotland would be grouse. There's one in South Africa, and there's many different types that you can get. But I did one which is called the Eastern Cape McNab, which is you have to shoot a foal raybuck, you have to shoot a brace of grey-wing francolin, which is like a partridge, and you have to catch a wild river trout, and all between the hours of sunrise and sunset. Now, I did that. It's up in the middle in South Africa, right up in the mountains. There's actually a landlocked country in the middle of South Africa called Lesotho, which is actually called the Mountain Kingdom, and it's right up in the mountains. We were up there in the middle of winter, freezing cold. We had a gale blowing, and I went out in the morning. Myself and my mate Rory went out in the morning, and foal raybuck are known for being very, very difficult to hunt. They only occur at high altitude. They've got incredibly good eyesight, and they're hard to find up in these mountains. And they're a small animal. They're kind of like probably the size of almost a hoggy, maybe a little bit bigger than a hoggy. So not very big deer. But I managed to get mine, and I think I'd wrapped it up by about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But I managed to shoot my foal raybuck at, I think it was 370 meters across this gully with my 308. And then I got a brace of grey-wing francolin using an old English shotgun, hammer shotgun, that I shot over English pointers. And I got the brace, which was amazing. And then I caught a couple trout, a couple were too small, and then eventually I got one. And these are wild river trout. And that was for me to achieve that McNab. But I'll never forget that day. We went out the next day, and overnight we'd had a couple of inches of snow. And my mate Rory was attempting his McNab, and between sunrise and sunset, all he managed to do was catch a trout. So it was, very, very different days, very different experiences, but it was up in the mountains, middle of South Africa, in the cold, the wind, the wet, and to achieve that McNab for me was so memorable. I'll never forget that hunt.
Mm-hmm.
How about yourself?
Lots of them, but one that comes to mind is I got a chance to hunt a smallish block around just outside of Esk, and we got up early, and so basically we just I was sleeping in the back of the truck, got up early, and we were coming down a paddock, and I could just see in the grass, a deformation in the grass. I know something's gone through there, so we followed it, this thing, and it went across an open paddock, through a little bit of water, and then up into a tree line and up into a fairly steep, rocky outcrop, and then into really some steep gully country. And I saw this thing, and I followed it. I went, okay. And then, like maybe 20 minutes later, saw the first print. Went, oh, okay, sure. And then we kept following it, and then I saw some really fresh scat. I went, oh, okay. And I just kept following, and we just kept on finding more and more information. And then we found on a bit of a misstep type thing, a scrape, and you could see, oh, okay. And we just it was hours, and we're just following this thing really slowly, just walking along and just getting little bits of information every time. And ultimately we came to a pretty, we were bluffed out. Well, not bluffed out, the opposite. We were at the base of a bluff. And that's where the stag was. And got the stag, shot the stag. So it was this whole series of deformation in wet grass to stag, and that was one of those few hunts where it was like that. It just, you all the time you were going, we are getting closer, we are moving close. It's just, we're just putting more and more information together, and we're getting more and more pointed, and that was all. That was one I remember, because there's only a handful of hunts where it's gone to that kind of level of, okay, this is just, things are just falling into place. That was quite a special morning hunt, that one.
Nice.
One that you've been on, that you've witnessed. So one about you. What about some you've been on a hunt with friends or something like that you've seen that's memorable?
Yeah, so one that I've witnessed will be the first hunt that I ever went on. So I had never been on a hunt before. I'd actually never shot a rifle before. And I was 18 years old. I had finished school. I think it was the week that we finished school, or the week after that we had finished high school. And myself and my mate Rory, we jumped in my little ute. I had this little single cab ute, this tiny little thing. And we headed a couple of hours south on our first hunting trip. And for me, I'd never done this before. This was, eyes open. But we went up to this little property, and it was actually my doctor, my family doctor, that he owned, and he said we could go for a hunt there, and we could go hunt. They're called blesbok, and a very common species in South Africa. But this was my first ever trip, and we stayed at this little farmhouse. There was no electricity or no power to the property. They had an old generator that you had to crank by hand to get this thing going. I've actually still got a scar up here from when I tried to crank the generator and the handle came off and hit me in the head. As you can see, it's pretty memorable. But that was the first hunt that I ever went on. And we went up into this, we had to go up the mountains and we had to go down into this gully. And we spotted the animals. It was cold, it was wet, it was miserable. And my mate Rory shot a blesbok. Now, I'd never been on a hunt before. I'd never seen a dead antelope or animal like that before. Never seen one being shot. I'd never heard the rifle go off before. And I can still remember the sound of the shot, the thud of it hitting the animal, seeing the animal drop, and then going up and seeing this animal in the grass, this dead animal in the grass. And then we packed it out, and then we went back to the farmhouse. We gutted it. This was all completely new to me, but I was hooked from that moment. So for me, that witnessing my first ever hunt, I knew that this was something that I wanted to do. And the next day, Rory we went down to the range on the farm, and he taught me how to shoot a rifle. And 25, 30 years later, I'm still hunting. So for me, if I hadn't witnessed that first hunt, I probably would never have taken up hunting. So it's pretty memorable for me.
I got plenty of other people, but one that probably very recent one was back in, what was it, June or July, when we went to Barraba.
June, we went to Barraba. Yeah.
And hunting with Matt and Jackson, and putting on the second, I think it was the second day in the morning, we put Jackson onto his first pig, and spotted it. Said, "Mate, there it is." He had the 223. I said, we're at about 120, and I said, "See that tree there? Just get to that tree. That'll get you closer. And watching him go in, shoot it, hit it. He hit it. You could tell that it was hit, and it was hit hard. It kind of just went, but it did this weird thing where it actually went uphill, which I went, oh, hang on, because that's not usual. But it only went up this little, and it just stopped. And I could see it, and Jack's, because it went out of his eye line, and he's kind of going, I said, "Mate, you got it. It's up there, get after it." And he went up and he got it. But that was pretty memorable watching him. He's stalking in, and he's I hunted with him. I put him on a couple of animals. Actually, there's a few memorable things from Jackson on that one. Another one, same week, the first animals we shot, we were sneaking up on these pigs, literally belly crawling, and I remember turning him. I said, "Mate, what do you like shooting prone? He goes, I've never shot prone before. And I went, okay. When I say so, stand up. So he just went, I had a great, that was a great deal of fun that whole weekend and helping him get on and his dad too, get on the game. That was pretty spectacular for me. That was a recent but well witnessed one. Territory was the same, but it was the fact that Jackson hadn't taken anything other than a goat to that stage and actually getting him on the pigs.
Pigs, your favourite?
Yeah, that's it. And they were good pigs too. They were big animals.
Pigs,
I wasn't even shooting little squealers. They were good animals and getting him that close. And the other thing is his infectious excitement. Like he's going, I've never done that before. Mate, you got plenty more to go. Yeah, we just started.
That whole Barraba region seems to be full of pigs. I've got a colleague at work who was there a couple of weeks ago, not the same property, but within the Barraba area, and he loves shooting pigs as well. He's actually going back this weekend to go shoot more pigs. So he's actually, now that you mentioned, he's taking his new shotgun with him as well. So he's going chasing pigs up that way. So there seems to be quite a few out there. As we know, there's certainly no shortage of them. The property we were on.
Oh yeah, that was everywhere in that cultivation.
Yeah.
Okay. Camp or camping adventure.
I'm going to go for the most recent one, which is going to be the Territory. I think it's a pretty
hard one to beat.
Yeah, that whole adventure around it, just the 3,000 odd Ks, the trying to sleep in the back of Adam's BT50, and that was pretty uncomfortable. And for me, that was a proper adventure. That was. Yeah, I don't think you can get much bigger adventure than that. I've had some great camping trips, but the entire experience around getting to the Territory, camping in the Territory, hunting in the Territory, getting home from the Territory, for me overall that was an amazing adventure. And the fact that we were going to do it every second year, and now we want to go back again next year, and we're going to go back next year, I think just sums up what an amazing trip it was.
I have to agree that just. It was ridiculous how well that all just worked.
It could have gone horribly wrong.
Well, there's so many, you don't travel 6,500 Ks or more than 600 and, not expect a problem, but it just everything worked.
We had problems. We had issues,
problems, but they were just
nothing we couldn't overcome. Yeah.
That's right. There was nothing, and the game was there. We just got into the rhythm, it took us a day to figure out those buffalo. Then we got in the rhythm, and then we were just on the buffalo all the time. Shot some good pigs as well. Just flew, Oh, well, it was stinking hot, but we were comfortable. Just worked out so well.
Yeah. For me, that was an amazing adventure.
So I'm going to jump over to any boating adventures.
Yeah, so I kind of grew up on boats, doing a lot of fishing. I've done a lot of scuba diving as well. Have I got a favorite? Mine's probably not specific to boating itself, but maybe for scuba diving. So I spent, as I said, a lot of time scuba diving when I was younger. I've got to instructor level, and I assisted on a number of courses, but I'll never forget, I was 21 years old, and I was about to leave South Africa to go to the UK. I'd never been out of South Africa before. I still lived at home at that stage. I'd never lived away from home. But I went up to this place called Sodwana Bay, which is 2 or 3 hours north of Durban, where I grew up, which is sort of the southernmost coral reefs within South Africa, and was on a scuba diving weekend. I was leaving South Africa, I think, within a week and a half after that. So this was going to be sort of my last getaway. And we had gone out. We've been, it was a diving holiday with my diving club. And we'd had a big night the night before, and we went out on the Sunday morning, and every other day had been horrible, but on the Sunday morning it was just glass. It was just this beautiful glassed out day, and we went out on this dive. And I remember talking to, I wasn't leading that dive, somebody else was leading it. I just wanted to dive, and I said to him at the end of it, do you mind if I just spend 5 minutes underwater on my own? And he said, absolutely. I know you're leaving. And I remember we did, we finished the dive. We'd been underwater for about an hour, and we're doing our safety stops, and he took everyone else up, and he gave me the reel with the buoy line on it. And I just sat there and I was just hanging in this water, and I had these trevally coming up and swimming around me. And I was just like, what are you doing? Why are you leaving, this beautiful South Africa with this water? And I just sat there for about 5-10 minutes and just took all of this in. And for me, it was an amazing experience, thinking, why are you leaving South Africa? But I got to experience so much more than that. I've been to the Red Sea, I've been to the Maldives, I've dived all over the world now after that. But at that point in time, I'll never forget just hanging there at 5 meters in the water, just in this crystal clear blue. And that was, for me, that was it. I was done after that. I could move on. So
mine's a little bit different. Me and 3 mates hired a house at Turkey Beach, and we towed up my boat, which was a 4.2 meter open tinny with a 40 on the back, just a simple tinny that we took everywhere. Took it to the Gulf, it went everywhere. Traveled, did a lot of Ks that boat on the water and on the road. Used to, in the right time, the year we used to take it out to the reef off Gold Coast, shoot out to 36s and stuff like that. Be out there in a tinny, and whales would come up, and you kind of go, okay, sure. Did so much in that boat, had it for years. On the Turkey Beach adventure, we were out one night, and summer storm came in, and we were out in that bay area, and this storm hit, and there was me and one of my mates next to me at the back, and the other 2 guys were up the front, kind of just huddled down, and we were just plowing along. And every so often through the lightning, you could see a hill. And I went, that's land, If we just keep going that way, we'll eventually hit land. And that was it. That was the only thing we had. I was like, ring, 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 ring. Thought we have to hit a sandbank or whatever it is. There's all sorts of things in the water up there. We just powered on, and we eventually got, we got closer, and then the lightning, and went, there's mangroves up ahead, and we slowed down, and we got in the mangroves, and we were just basically weighed out the storm in the mangroves. I remember that storm. That was a pretty hectic. I don't know how long it was. It felt like a long time, but that was a pretty hectic night in the boat. That was probably my one. I've had a few boating adventures, and I mean by not mishaps, but adventures. That was probably one of the more memorable ones.
Where's Turkey Beach?
Just up towards Gladstone that way.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
Yeah, so just up the central Queensland coast. I suppose the last thing is anything we haven't spoken about.
From a sentimental perspective, for me, I have a very, very sentimental fishing rod.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I have 3 very sentimental fishing rods. So they all relate to my father. So my father and I were not very close. My parents were divorced when I was very, very young. But the one thing that I got from my father was my love of fishing. So he loved his fishing, and he used to take me fishing all the time, surprisingly. And quite often we would combine it with his love for golf. So he would go golfing, but he would drop us off at the beach. We'd go fishing while he'd go golfing, and then pick us up afterwards. But anyway, I have 2 fishing rods that were actually my father's fishing rod. And I remember being a very, very young kid, and these fishing rods being up on the rack in his garage. And I now have those fishing rods, and they were mine in South Africa. And I caught lots of fish on them in South Africa. And then when friends moved from South Africa to Australia, they brought them with them, because at that point in time, we were planning on moving to Australia. So I lived in the UK, and we were hoping to one day move to Australia. So they were selling up everything in South Africa, and they said, what do you want us to do with your fishing rods? I said, can you bring them with you? And they said, absolutely. So I put them in their container. So I have those fishing rods here in Australia, 2 of which belong to my father, one of which, the third one, my father bought for me. So when I finished high school and I was 18 and I got my my results. So the way it works in South Africa, you do your end of year huge examinations at the end of year 12 equivalent. So for me, it was sixth form when I went to school, then we write what's called the National Senior Certificate. So that's the national exams. Everyone writes the same exams, and then those results get released in early January. So it was like a big thing where you go out there and you go to your school and they have big printouts. This is pre-computer days, or commercial computing like we have now, but they would have these big printouts and you would get your results up on the wall printed out, or they'd be in the newspaper. They'd actually be released in the newspaper. And I actually did surprisingly well in my my end of school exams. I got several A's, and my family were quite surprised, I guess, or proud at how well I had done. And my father was actually very, very proud, and he said, "What do I want?" So I said, "Well, I really want this fishing rod." And so he took me to my favorite fishing shop, and I chose this fishing rod. And I have caught hundreds, if not thousands, of fish off that fishing rod. And I still have that fishing rod, and I've taken it to Fraser with me, and I still try and fish with it. But for me, it was to have the fishing rod that my father, who I was not close to, I will admit to, but I have that fishing rod. I have not very much else of his, but I have his I have two of his fishing rods and the one that he bought me. So for me, that's very, very, very special. They're probably not the most practical these days. They're not. It's a single fishing rod, one piece, very, very heavy. It's got leather grip on it. It's got you name it. But I've pulled some big sharks. I've pulled some big fish with that thing. And for me, that's the most. Yeah, it's incredibly sentimental for me. So
there you go.
How about yourself?
Well, if we're going to go down that track, I was thinking about all sorts of things, but when you brought up the sentimental attachment, if you look at the hunting videos, and probably the territory video is a good one, you'll notice that I'm wearing a really colourful bracelet. It's really, really colourful, like stands out. And what it is my youngest, he's always been a bit of a hard nut. Always has been. He's hilarious in that sense. When he was very little, he was still at prep, and I was going on a hunting trip. They made this bracelet at prep, or not prep, daycare, obviously, for him, and he gave it to me, and he actually said, that he wanted me to wear it when I went away hunting. I went, and I was quite taken aback by it, because he's not the sentimental type, even at a very young age. He said he wanted me to wear it, and I said, sure. And I wear it every hunting set. So I don't know. If you look at the videos, it'll be on my right hand. You should see a really, really colourful beaded bracelet, and it's the one he gave me. He gave me that bracelet, so I wear that every time I go hunting. It'll eventually break. It's actually up here. I'll grab it because it'll fall out. But it's only something that one of his craft teachers made. It's going to fall apart someday, pretty soon. But I wear it until it falls apart. So that's it. So that's how that's my last thing. That bracelet. That's the sentimental connection. That one. Okay.
Cool. It's a good place to end it, I think.
Yeah, why not? So hope you enjoyed it, guys. But back to that point. If you have any questions, we now have a listener Q&A section to have every week. So if you've got any questions, hit us up, and we'll try and answer for them. I'll try to answer those questions for you. That's probably a better way to say it. Okay, Jono. I reckon it's time to wrap it up.
We'll catch you soon. Hopefully Ian's back next time.
Oh, well, if he's not, he's not. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's his loss.
Okay, mate. See you later.
See ya.